Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are opening up really quite a remarkable stack of sources. They detail this conflict inside the Republican Party. And it's so intense, the material actually calls it a civil war.
Yeah, a civil war. It's not just, jockeying for position or arguing about marginal tax rates.
Right.
The sources are framing this as a proxy war. It's about the whole identity, the future direction of the GOP.
So the big question is, does the party go back to its, let's say, historical platform before Trump?
Or does it keep evolving down this America First road? That's the crux of it.
Okay. So that's our mission today, then. We're going to unpack those two really radically opposing paths.
And we'll use this clash, right, between Senator Lindsey Graham, who kind of represents that entrenched power structure, and his challenger, Paul Dans, who seems to embody this America First push.
Yeah, use them to reveal what's really at stake here. Because, at the end of the day, this primary battle, it's about controlling the party.
And potentially controlling the country's direction.
Yeah. So where do we start? We probably need to define these paths, ideologically speaking.
Absolutely. Because that control only matters depending on what priorities the government actually pursues.
Okay, let's start with the old guard, as the sources call it, this pre-Trump GOP philosophy. It's described as this specific mix, almost like an arranged marriage of two different policy ideas.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. What our research shows pretty consistently is this fusion that became like the definition of Republican orthodoxy for decades.
Which was?
Neoconservative foreign policy.
Yeah.
Paired with libertarian economic policy.
Okay, neoconservative foreign policy, libertarian economics. For listeners, maybe just a quick refresher. What does that actually look like in practice? What's the result?
Well, you put those two together, right? You get global interventionism. That's the neocon side. Promoting democracy abroad, being the world's police force, maybe getting into, endless foreign wars, some would say.
Okay, and the other half?
The libertarian side. That means, massive deregulation, sweeping tax cuts, often benefiting corporations and the wealthy more directly. This was the party of the Washington think tanks.
Right, the established.
The Wall Street Journal editorial page, the big donors. Yeah.
So an intellectual financial establishment.
Yeah.
Focused on global stuff, domestic financial interests, almost above everything else.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Now, you contrast that deep history with the MAGA movement, or, America First.
How's that defined?
It's defined by a fundamentally different main focus.
Yeah.
Donald Trump might not have laid it out in, super academic terms.
Sure.
But his actions, his rhetoric, they made it pretty clear. The U.S. government has to act first and foremost for American citizens, period. Full stop.
And what's really interesting, maybe even startling, is the claim our source material makes about just how popular this message was.
Yeah, the research suggests America First wasn't just popular. It was maybe the single most popular political message that any candidate has delivered in many, many generations.
Wow. Why? Why such incredible power?
Well, because it resonated so strongly, didn't it? For years, you had a lot of Americans feeling like the system wasn't working for them. Global trade deals, foreign interventions.
They seem to benefit others.
Right, seem to benefit coastal elites or, foreign countries. So the core idea here is that every major government decision gets filtered through one question.
Which is?
How does this affect the people who pay for this government and who I, as a representative, actually represent?
And that focus, it led directly to those key platforms, right? Drain the swamp.
Remove the insiders who profit from the status quo.
And no more pointless wars.
Yeah. Stop spending American blood and treasure overseas. It's an inward focus, not outward.
Got it. Okay.
Exactly. And, to really understand the depth of this clash, now we have to look at its current embodiment. Senator Lindsey Graham.
Right, Graham. He's like the definition of institutional power. Senior senator, South Carolina, serving since 1994. That's
31 years.
Yeah, 31 years. And the sources suggest he's got more donor backing than almost anyone in U.S. history. Huge amounts of money.
The money, the institutional support, it's overwhelming. But, and this is the key thing, the real fault line in the party, despite all that donor love.
Yeah.
The sources state pretty clearly that Graham's views are actually despised by most Republican primary voters, the Trump voters, in his own state, South Carolina.
Okay, that's a massive disconnect. The base dislikes him, but the money aches him there? That sounds... Well, the stakes seem enormous for the democratic system itself.
They are. Our research suggests that if Graham wins re-election, despite that voter sentiment, it sends a signal that the process maybe doesn't work.
That the system isn't responding to voters.
Exactly. Fail to respond to clear concerns.
Yeah.
It can be deeply demoralizing for that whole grassroots movement.
So to understand why they dislike him, we need to look at his worldview, which apparently sums up that old guard ideology we just talked about.
Perfectly. And the source gives us his own description of the Republican platform.
Yeah.
And it's pretty shocking in how direct it is.
What does he say?
Graham is quoted saying the Republican Party is about cutting your taxes and killing all the right people.
Wow. Okay. Cutting your taxes and killing all the right people. That really is.
That's the ultimate summary, isn't it?
It is. The source calls that the crispest way to describe the marriage of libertarian economics and neocon foreign policy. It just strips away all the, polite language.
No euphemisms there.
None. And the analysis of that quote in the source material, it's pretty brutal. It suggests he treats tax cuts and killing the right people, as just inherently good things, unquestioned positives that define the party.
Implying foreign policy is just about lethal force.
That's the implication, yeah. It's viewed entirely through that lens.
And you could see his focus on foreign stuff over domestic concerns in his priorities, right? Like when he was defending Trump to the old guard.
Graham apparently said the main reason to love Trump was moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem because, and this is Graham's reasoning, God commanded it.
Right. It's all about that external foreign policy focus framed in almost theological terms there.
And his actions seem to follow that. The source mentions his travel, 5 trips to Israel in just 5 months after October 7th, 2023.
That's what's reported. And during one trip, his stated purpose was apparently to push back against the criticism, the blood libel, he called it, that Israel was using starvation as a weapon of war.
Okay, but the source material contrasts that directly, right? With reports that some Israeli cabinet ministers were allegedly recorded saying things like, starve them out, kill them.
Exactly. So the conflict there is it's intense, it's global, very visible.
And this rhetoric around violence, it isn't just about foreign conflicts, is it? The source points to specific examples suggesting what it calls his attitude of worshiping death.
That's the phrase used, worshiping death.
Okay, hang on. Let's pause there because this next part it's pretty stunning. The source reports he actually suggested killing unarmed American citizens.
That's the allegation cited.
Specifically, Graham allegedly told a Capitol Hill police officer during the events of January 6th, "You guys have guns, why don't you shoot them all in the head?"
Yeah, that detail, if true, it fundamentally changes the stakes, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, calling for summary execution of domestic protesters.
It paints a picture.
It highlights exactly why the sources see Graham as the absolute symbol of the establishment that these grassroots voters are trying to overthrow. It suggests an attitude where, the lives of others, even Americans, seem expendable if they threaten the established order.
And that same kind of attitude, maybe encouraging conflict, it's mirrored in what he reportedly said about the war in Ukraine.
Where he allegedly bragged about the war, saying, "The Russians are dying. The best money we've ever spent."
The best money we've ever spent. So it connects the economics, the libertarian side, directly to the neocon enthusiasm for killing overseas.
Precisely. It's like the perfect, chilling manifestation of that old guard fusion.
Okay. So that's the incumbent. Now let's turn to the challenger, Paul Dans. He represents the America First side, identifies as original MAGA.
Yeah, and he traces his political roots, or skepticism maybe, back to supporting Ross Perot in 1992.
Perot, who famously warned about NAFTA and jobs leaving the U.S., that giant sucking sound.
Exactly. He warned about hollowing out American industry. So Dans sees himself in that lineage.
And his background is different, too.
Very different. Rooted in working-class immigrant stock, he talks about running for God, family, country, wants to ensure America First survives beyond Trump.
It's personal for him.
Seems to be. He mentions his grandfather, a merchant marine in World War II, whose ship was sunk by a Nazi torpedo. And he often brings up his 5 kids he's running for the future he wants for them. Stability, peace.
And his academic background. That gives his critique of the old guard's economics some real teeth, doesn't it? Studied economics at MIT.
Right, at MIT. And he says he saw the theoretical basis for globalism being built right there in the 1990s.
Okay, we should probably slow down here. What exactly did he see? What was the issue he identified?
Well, Dans describes the theory taught back then as focusing heavily on capital return. The idea was U.S. companies move production overseas, the profits flow back, everyone gets richer.
Sounds good on paper.
Sure. But Dans says the theory completely ignored the externalities.
Okay, externalities. Let's unpack that a bit. What does that mean in plain English?
An externality is basically the hidden cost, the thing the system didn't put on its balance sheet. So yeah, maybe capital flow back to investors in Boston or New York. But the factory closes in, say, Gary, Indiana, or Detroit, or somewhere in rural South Carolina, and that closure destroys the local community. The tax base collapses, infrastructure crumbles, people lose hope.
So the system counted the profits.
But not the community decay. Not the broken families, the opioid crisis, the roads falling apart. Those were the externalities.
So he saw how that abstract MIT economic theory could lead directly to broken towns back home.
Precisely. And he didn't just study it. He served in the Trump administration. He actually claims to be the architect of Project 2025.
Project 2025. Okay, that's significant. That signals a real commitment to building an America First government structure ready to go.
It does. It shows he's serious about implementing this ideology.
And his critique of Graham's actual record is 32 years. It's pretty sharp, focusing on fiscal responsibility or the lack thereof.
Yeah, he hammers Graham on the national debt, points out it went from around $5 trillion to, what, $38 trillion during Graham's time in Washington?
$38 trillion. Wow.
He uses that massive number to argue Graham failed on domestic security, fiscal security, and he connects it to things back home, like South Carolina's infrastructure is reportedly suffering badly. Roads ranked 50th out of 50 states.
Dead last.
Dead last. For Dan's, that's Exhibit A, that Graham's focus on foreign wars means neglecting the actual people who elected him.
And Dan's uses a specific nickname for Graham, too, right? Deep State Lindsey? What's behind that?
Well, he argues Graham actively worked against the Trump agenda from within. He claims Graham helped reinforce the Russia hoax, which undermined Trump, and also undermined the promise to build the border wall. So, for the America First movement, Graham isn't just disagreeing on policy. He's seen as like an agent of the established order, actively blocking change.
Okay, so this sets up this fundamental clash, and the sources frame it as something much deeper than just policy, right? A conflict over justice and the value of life itself.
Yeah, this is where synthesizing all the source material becomes really crucial. On one side, you have Graham and the old guard, and based on those quotes about killing the right people or shooting protesters, the sources describe their attitude as one of collective punishment.
Collective punishment, meaning you punish people based on their group, not whether they personally did anything wrong.
Exactly. Punishing people because they're Russians or because they're part of a protest group. The source material frames this as a non-Christian understanding of justice.
Yeah.
One that denies the individual human soul, the individual responsibility.
Makes war easier, maybe? If you think in terms of groups, not people.
That's the implication.
Yeah.
It's an easier calculation for war and death if you're willing to condemn or punish a whole collective.
Okay. And the other side, the America First view, embodied by Dan's.
That's described as being rooted in, well, traditional Western or Christian concepts of justice. The foundation there is that punishment must be individual. Only the guilty person is punished. You don't punish someone for their group, their heritage, whatever.
And this difference plays out in how they seem to value life itself.
That's what the sources suggest. You have Graham, who, based on these accounts, is accused of, quote, worshiping death, casually encouraging it, bragging about it, abroad or even at home. Whereas Dan's perspective is presented as being tied to stability, peace, directly linked to his role as a father of five. He has this very tangible personal stake in the country's long-term future. It's peace.
So you've got this massive ideological chasm playing out in one Senate primary in South Carolina. Why should this matter to you, the listener, wherever you are?
Well, the sources argue this contest is critical. It's described as the barometer for whether Mangier lives or dies.
A barometer. Okay.
Yeah. The outcome is seen as a signal. Can grassroots voters actually challenge this deeply entrenched donor-fueled establishment, an establishment accused of prioritizing foreign wars and, certain financial interests over the citizens they're supposed to represent?
So it really does seem like this whole debate within the Republican Party, it's not just about tax rates or specific regulations.
No, it's much deeper. The sources point to it flowing from foundational beliefs about the value of human life, the role of the individual versus the group, and fundamentally who the government is supposed to serve.
Which leaves us with a really provocative final thought, doesn't it? Pulled straight from the source material.
It does. Does a political movement that's founded on these specific values of God, family, country, a message focused on roots, stability, the nation itself, does it actually have the strength to win against decades of institutional power?
Yeah.
Decades of entrenched money?
And maybe the flip side of that, What happens to the country if that institutional power does prevail, even if it seems disconnected from what many voters actually want? The answer to that, well, it might just define the next decade of American politics.
Definitely something to think about.
Indeed. Something critical to consider as we wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for digging into these sources with us today.